Good morning. Today I am talking about the antidepressant drugs. In previous class, we have learned about the anti-anxiety agents. These are the drugs which decreases the anxiety, and in that category, we have learned the benzodiazepines, azapirones, antihistaminics, and the beta blocker. Today, we will discuss about a list of these drugs which are referred as antidepressants. Classification should be known. It gives an insight that how the drug is acting. So let us read that. The first class is the reversible inhibitors of monoamine oxidase A, called as the RIMAs, where moclobemide and chlorgelline are used. Quite old and even used today, the tricyclic antidepressant group of the drugs, where the first group belongs to noradrenaline 5-hydroxytryptamine reuptake inhibitors. In this category, we are having imipramine, amitriptyline, trimipramine, doxepin, dothiapine, and clomipramine. Another group is predominantly noradrenaline reuptake inhibitors, desipramine, nortriptyline, amoxapine, reboxetine. Third important group is selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, also called as the SSRI. These are fluoxetine, fluoxamine, paroxetine, sertraline, citalopram, and escitalopram. While there is another group referred as atypical antidepressants, where the exact mechanism is quite variable. We are not pinpointing them. Those are trazodone, mianserin, mirtazapine, venlafaxine, duloxetine, tineptine, amineptine, bupropion, protriptyline, maprotilene, and the nafazodone. The list is quite long. These drugs, they are also called as the mood elevators, or they are also called as the energizers. To understand the pharmacology of these drugs, one should know that what is a depression. There are a number of lectures where how to live a happy life, how to keep the mood stable, how the person should be away from sorrow, etc. has been taught. Now today, we are discussing that why the depression occurs, why the drastic mood changes occurs, and what is the pathophysiology at a molecular level, at a brain level, in the different regions of the brain, what happens, and that's why there is a change in the behavior. Then it has been observed that whenever our mood changes, that means some changes occur in our brain neurotransmitter level. It is a very fine mechanism. Say, in our brain, the thousands of neurotransmitters exist. Of course, we can name few which are quite major one, like noradrenaline, adrenaline, or the acetylcholine, 5-hydroxytryptamine, dopamine, and the others one. So these neurotransmitters, though they are huge in number, they are having a complete balanced state. This equilibrium is well maintained. Whenever it is excessive, it will lead to disease. Whenever it is decreased in nature or the quantity, the phenomenon of a hypomania or the depression occurs. While observing a number of patients and then doing the chemical analysis, now it is agreed that The depression arises because there is a disturbance, there is a dysfunction in monoamine neurotransmitter. What do you mean by monoamine neurotransmitter? For example, those neurotransmitter like noradrenaline, dopamine, 5-hydroxytryptamine, and like that. Though there is a complex etiology which affects the neurotransmitters and the receptors, a common mechanism, one can say that if you balance all these neurotransmitters, then the mood or the depression can be relieved. But it is not so simple. Let us balance today all the neurotransmitter. Patient is not okay in the evening. It takes a prolonged time. And that's why whenever we are giving any drug and we are trying to balance this level, we get a good effect only after 3 to 4 weeks. That means balancing is a primary level, and then what are the changes which are occurring inside the neuronal cell, inside the neurons as such. Either it may be a secondary amplification, tertiary amplification system, we don't know, but something occurs in variety of brain centers, including hypothalamus, reticular activating system, amygdala, then the corpus, etc. And after few weeks, you see that there occurs a change in the behavior of a person. So that's why it is a complex etiology. It is not very simple that just maintain the equilibrium. And it is felt to be partially a result of deficiency in norepinephrine and the serotonin. So these are the two neurotransmitters, mainly the norepinephrine and the serotonin, which are responsible for the depression. And that's why it is said that it is an interplay between the neurotransmitter, norepinephrine, serotonin, dopamine, and the acetylcholine. Now, what is as such a depression? Depression is a type of behavior where a person is having a sad mood. Continuously, he is in a sad mood. He is not reactive. He is not responding. He is calm, quiet, apathetic. Loss of interest in each and every activity. He don't want to mix up with the colleagues. Very important. There is no interest. At the same time, he cannot concentrate. And that's why when we say that, yes, a person is unable to concentrate, that means there is some form of mood disturbance is there. All these persons, you see that either they are sitting calmly in one corner. They are not very much alert as far as their clothing is concerned, their eating and the drinking behavior is concerned, and their actual progress in the life is concerned. So when this type of depression occurs, naturally, a person is detached from the society. In previous lecture, we have seen that the earlier features of this depression might be the anxiety. And that's why we want to treat and pick up the anxiety as early as possible, and we want to treat it. Chronic anxiety may lead to depression. Then depression may be of two types. One is a reactive depression. Say there is a loss of huge amount. A student is fail in exam, or there is some near and dear one passed away. Of course, it is a reactive depression. Another depression is called as the endogenous depression. It is also called as a melancholic type of depression. Here, a person feels that there is a misery in the life, no hope in the life. Though the environment may not be the same as he think of. He thinks that there is a complete loss, no joyfulness in the life. And this type of depression is endogenous depression, and it is mainly arising from inside. That means some neurological disturbance, some neurotransmission disturbance is there in the brain. Whenever these neurotransmitters they are affected, of course, they will affect not only the function of the brain, but they will affect all the endocrine system also. So neuroendocrine system is affected. Corticotrophin releasing hormone, hypothalamus, ACTH, and the adrenal cortex all are affected, and there will be a disturbed function of the neuroendocrine axis. Increased cortisol may decrease the number of sensitivity of cortisol receptors and lead to depression. Apart from this, other endocrine organ like thyroid, some genetic factors, and the environmental situations may help to develop the depression. So why depression occur? You can say that it is a multifactorial. And that's why the treatment will be multifactorial. No doubt that the drugs are there, we will use the drug, we will learn about the drug, but the primary duty is that allow this patient to breathe, allow this patient to talk, allow this patient with a kind and the sympathetic attitude by the physician as well as the society. Assurance to this patient, cooperation to these patients, kindness towards this patient, understanding their disease as such, and along with all this condition, a counseling, psychoanalysis, and then the drug treatment. And if it is all done with good cooperation from each and every part, then we get a very good results as far as the treatment of depression is concerned. This depression can be of different type. As I have told, one is the reactive depression or the endogenous depression. Another one is the unipolar depression. Here, the depression is a major factor in the disease or the behavior. Next one is the bipolar depression. Bipolar depression, that means there is an alternating cycle where waxing and the waning occurs. Person goes into the depression. After that, his mood gets corrected. Mood gets so elevated, so elated that he becomes a patient of mania. Excessive stimulation occurs. Then again, after mania, hyperstimulation, again patient goes into the depression cycle. And this cycle goes on. And it will go on till a prolonged time. And that's why it is said that whenever you are diagnosing a patient of depression, treat for a prolonged time, say years together. If patient is all right for months together, then and then you can think of to decrease or to stop the treatment, which is very gradual one. Don't stop the treatment abruptly. Otherwise, patient may land again into the depression. So it is advised that whenever we diagnose the patient of depression, diagnose them that in which category he is, what type of treatment he is needed, how he can be stabilized with the treatment, and how one can maintain the output for a prolonged time. And next one is the mania. Mania is exactly reverse to that of the depression. We will learn detail about the mania. So all these drugs which we have just seen, they normalize the neurotransmission system by altering the transmitters and the receptor. They also modify the interaction between neurotransmission system and the endocrine function. The neurotransmitters that are not bound are inactivated by reuptake or are metabolized by monoamine oxidase. So these last three lines, they are very important. This indicates that what occurs in the synapse. Whenever we say that a patient is depressed, that means in his brain or in the connections of the neuron, some change occurs. What change occur? We know that the neuronal membrane, they are attached to one another. either neurotic, neurodendritic, neuroaxonal, like that. And in between that, there is a synaptic cleft. Whenever there is a stimulus, some neurotransmitters are released into the synaptic cleft. And they remain there for very short time, few milliseconds. They either act on a postsynaptic receptors or they may act on a presynaptic receptors. After a short while, these neurotransmitters, they are taken up. That is called as a reuptake mechanism. And they are destroyed or they are recycled. And thus the action of neurotransmitter stops. Now here we will target our drug. What we will do, it has been observed that this depressed person, if this neurotransmitter level into the synaptic cleft is maintained for a prolonged time, if they are allowed to live for a prolonged time into the synaptic cleft, there will be a more stimulation, either postsynaptically as well as the presynaptically. And this increased time duration of the neurotransmitter into the synaptic cleft will allow the person to come up from the depression. And that's why we will try to give those type of drugs which will allow the neurotransmitter level in the synaptic cleft for a prolonged time. And the first category will be the monoamine oxidase inhibitors. We know that the monoamine oxidase like noradrenaline, 5-hydroxytryptamine, dopamine, they are the stimulant type of agent. Whenever they are released, they are immediately broken down by the enzyme. That is called as a monoamine oxidase. There are two types of monoamine oxidase. Monoamine oxidase A and monoamine oxidase B. In our brain, cerebral cortex and subcortical region, the neurons consist of the huge amount of the noradrenaline, 5-hydroxytryptamine, etc. And they are continuously broken down by the monoamine oxidases. MAO, they are intracellular enzyme and they break down this neurotransmitter. Suppose we will give a drug which can inhibit this enzyme, then the neurotransmitter will be remaining for a prolonged time. And in this category, we are having the different drugs. Previously, it has been observed that while working with the antituberculous drug, isoniazid, iproniazid, that these persons, after some time, their behavior become quite good. They become elated. The depressed person now, he is talking well, mixing with a friend. And then it has been observed that this iproniazid, isoniazid, they are having a property of monoamine oxidase inhibitors. And few drugs have been evolved. But the initial drugs, they were the irreversible blockade of the monoamine oxidase. And because of that, they were not well tolerated. They were having a more side effects. And then come the reversible monoamine oxidase inhibitors. That is also called as a RIMAs. RIMA are nothing but reversible inhibitors of monoamine oxidases. And in that, we are having the moclobemide, which is used in therapeutics. These monoamine oxidases, they are not specific. They can inhibit the monoamine oxidases, which are other than norepinephrine or the 5-hydroxytryptamine. And they can block the metabolism of these agents right into the liver as well as the gut wall and in the blood and the body. And that's why, suppose we take any food which consists of the tyramine or monoamine precursor of norepinephrine, or suppose I'm taking a cough syrup where there is some sympathomimetic amine, and if patient is already on MAOI, then it can lead to a severe complications like hypertension, stroke, heart attack, and common food stuff like yogurt, buttermilk, it consists of the tyramine. If this tyramine or the indirectly acting sympathomimetic amine directly goes into the systemic circulation without any metabolism, then it will definitely stimulate the sympathetic nervous system at so much so level that subarachnoid hemorrhage can appear. And that's why a advice should be given to the patient that whenever you are maintained with this type of drug, don't take this type of food like the cheese or yogurt, buttermilk, pickled food, which consists of the sympathomimetic amine. And one should avoid as far as this food stuff is concerned. In practice, we are mainly using the moclobemide. Other drugs, they are also there like isocarbazole, carboxazide, phenelzine, and the tranylcypromine 10 milligrams 3 times a day is usually prescribed. But as such, the monoamine oxidase inhibitor drugs, they are not very much accepted drug, either because of their side effect. For example, they may produce a variety of complications, and because of that, a better drug, they are available, and they consist of the, or they are called as the tricyclic antidepressant. As the word suggests, these are the drugs where there is a 3-ring chemical structure with the structural configuration. They show the 3-ring structure, and in that category, we are having a number of drugs. In previous era, these are the main type of antidepressant agent called as the tricyclic antidepressant. But now, later on, as the science progressed, we came to know that yes, there are, apart from this, other category is also there. Not only the tricyclic, but some bicyclic compounds, they are also useful. There are some drugs where chemical structure is not related with the tricyclic compound at all, but still they are acting as an antidepressant agent. They are referred as an atypical agent. This tricyclic antidepressants, number of drugs are available like imipramine, trimipramine, amitriptyline, and these drugs, they are again called as the noradrenaline 5-hydroxytryptamine reuptake inhibitors. That means whenever these drugs are given to the patient, then the drug goes into the body or the blood circulation, will act on the neurotransmitter level. What they will do in the synaptic cleft, they block the 2 transporter mechanism. One is the serotonin transporter and another is the noradrenaline transporter. If these 2 transporters are blocked, what will happen? From the synaptic cleft, the drug is not taken up into the neuronal ending, and that's why drug will remain for a prolonged time into the synaptic cleft. So they are the drugs which block the 5-hydroxytryptamine and noradrenaline transporter into the neuronal membrane. As the level is increased slowly into the synaptic cleft, after few weeks, at least 3 to 4 weeks, slowly patient shows the improvement in sign and the symptoms of the depression. So what are their pharmacological action? First, with the central nervous system. Suppose we have given this drug to a normal person. Then these normal person don't feel good as far as taking this drug because they are not pleasurable. They do not give any mood elevation, but they may produce some confusion-like state. They may produce the heaviness in the head, or in short, you can say that the person do not want that the drug should be taken, and that's why they are non-addictive type of drug. Why? If they are given to a person or a patient of depression, then slowly, after at least 3 to 4 weeks, the patient become more talkative. He's starting to take the interest in the surrounding. He's giving a caution to himself. He is knowing that, yes, I should do this, I should work, or he may have a improved thought process. The apathetic nature, the sorrow type of nature now become more joyful. And once we continue the treatment, slowly these patients, they become normal. Not only this, but the suicidal thoughts, they are decreases. And that's why we say that whenever the patients, they are having the suicidal thoughts, any depression type of patient with suicidal thought, we grade them as a severe type of depression, endogenous or the melancholous type of depression. These negative thoughts, these suicidal thoughts, they are also decreased if we continue the treatment. They are also having some other systemic effects. For example, they are highly anticholinergic compound. And because of that, the common presentation is that persons or these patients, they usually complain of a dry mouth, constipation, blurring of vision. Because of the anticholinergic property, there might be tachycardia. In elderly individual, if you are giving this type of the drug, they may produce the arrhythmias because the QT interval get prolonged. And a caution should be made that while prescribing the tricyclic antidepressant, particularly the imipramine, amitriptyline, one should do the prior ECG. Note the serious behavior every after 15 days, 1 week, or once a month. And if there is a QT prolongation, if chances of arrhythmia is there, decrease the dose. So cardiovascular side effect is also there. Few patients may complain of a little bit fall in the blood pressure. Then the tolerance and the dependence. When we are giving the tricyclic antidepressant, patient also says that there is more sleep, a sedation is felt, but there occurs a tolerance to this sedation. While the antidepressant effect is well maintained even after prolonged and the continuous use. As these drugs do not produce any very pleasurable, or you can say the addictive type of effect, these drugs, they are not the drug of addict. They are not taken regularly by a person so as to have a more and more effect of the drug. Pharmacokinetics, all these drugs, they are well absorbed. They are having a very long half-life, usually 20 to 30 hours. And that's why even a single day or the once a day administration is sufficient. They are having a number of adverse effects because of the drug. They are also metabolized by the common pool, cytochrome 3,8D3, cytochrome P, etc. And that interaction may produce the different side effect. More serious adverse effects, especially the anticholinergic and the cardiac effect, weight gain and the sedation. In this category, we, as I have told, we are having the two groups. First group is the noradrenaline 5-hydroxytryptamine reuptake inhibitors. As such, one can call the tricyclic antidepressant as a non-specific neurotransmitter reuptake inhibitors. Here, noradrenaline and 5-hydroxytryptamine is mainly inhibited by imipramine, amitriptyline, trimipramine, doxepin, dothiapine, and the clomipramine. While predominantly noradrenaline reuptake is inhibited by dazipramine, nortriptyline, amoxapine, and the reboxetine. You may say that which drug I should use. The selection of the drug should depend on the patient acceptability. the patient other clinical features, its cardiovascular stability, and depending on the variety of adverse effect, one can select the drug. One may give an example about the amitriptyline. This amitriptyline, it is also having the anticholinergic effect. There was one patient maintained with amitriptyline 10 milligram twice a day since years together. After 3 or 4 years, he came in a casualty and complaining that there was a severe pain in abdomen. The pain was so high grade that patient is unable to withstand. Surgeon came. He had seen that there is a bloating of abdomen. There is no intestinal sound. He feels that there might be a chance of intestinal obstruction. Patient was investigated. Before investigation, a drug history was asked, and he told that, sir, I am taking the tablet amitriptyline, that is the tablet Triptomer, 10 milligram twice a day since 3 years, and immediately a light is bulb. These are the drugs with such a anticholinergic effect that it has produced a paralytic ileus type of picture. Immediately, the antidote were given, the prokinetics were given, injectables were given, like metoclopramide, and within hours, patient improved. After 3 hours, patient is discharged. If we are knowing the details about this drug, of course, we can save the patient from the economical burden. Otherwise, all these patients, they may land into different complications. What are the contraindications to the use of tricyclic antidepressant? As I have told, they should be used cautiously in not only in the depression, but mixed mania and the schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is a psychotic disorder we will discuss in the next few class. And the mixed mania, that means if there is a picture of mania and the depression, then at what time the drug should be started, what dose, how it should be titrated, it is a skillful job, and that's why one should be cautious. In suicidal tendencies, one should be alert. It might be a feature that sometime the patient may improve of the symptom of depression, and the energy for the thought process get increased. And if he is a potential thinking about the suicide, then there are chances that the suicidal thoughts may get increased. And that's why there is a question mark whether one should directly use the drug into the patient with this type of negative features. And that's why in severe depression, it is suggested that one should give a drug which is quite fast acting. Think of a benzodiazepine group like the alprazolam, so that they can sedate the central nervous system. Think of a electroconvulsive treatment, ECT, because it is observed that ECT gives a prompt result and fast result. All these antidepressant drugs which we are learning today, they take some time, months together. To curtail this time duration, one should think of some other modality of treatment like psychoanalysis, counseling, ECT, and some CNS depressant also. Again, don't give this drug in renal, hepatic, or the cardiovascular disease. Don't give in narrow angle glaucoma because of their anticholinergic property. Few drugs in the TCA group, like the bupropion, etc., they may produce the seizure. the threshold for convulsions is decreased. And that's why these persons, they are prone for the convulsions. So you can say that the tricyclic antidepressants, they vary in their adverse effect. You must give this drug for a prolonged time so as to give a proper therapeutic level. It is observed that there is a therapeutic window effect. And in that particular concentration, this drug, they give a good effect. Less than the level, no effect. More level is there, they will produce the toxicity. They can be given orally once a day, and the multiple drug interactions, they should be kept in mind as far as this TCA is concerned. These are the two special drugs, amoxapine and the reboxetine. Amoxapine, it blocks noradrenaline as well as the dopamine, while the reboxetine, it blocks the reuptake of noradrenaline, and it is a weak 5-hydroxytryptamine reuptake inhibitors. The advantage of these drugs is that they can be given to a patient where there is a excessive stimulation. Noradrenaline and the dopamine, they will be blocked, and thus in this patient they give a better response. The very important group for the antidepressant agent is the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Because while using the previous tricyclic antidepressant, it is observed that there are huge side effects because they are not specific. These drugs, they are blocking 5-HT, noradrenaline, dopamine, number of neurotransmitters, and that's why their side effect is also more, and their outcome is not very much selective. We want the drug which should act selectively, and with increase in the understanding of the neurotransmission, we came to know that not only the tricyclic antidepressant, but if we target only few system like the 5-hydroxytryptamine, which is mainly responsible for the depression, then we get a less side effect and more therapeutic output. And in this category, we are having the SSRI, fluoxetine, fluoxamine, paroxetine, sertraline, citalopram, escitalopram. All these drugs, they are called as a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. They block the reuptake from the synaptic cleft of 5-hydroxytryptamine. Serotonin is 5-hydroxytryptamine, and because of that, the depression is relieved, and that's why they are called as a SSR. What is the advantage of this drug? Advantage is that they are selective, so less side effect, but some adverse effect like nausea, sexual dysfunction, anticholinergic effect, headache, increased risk of GI bleed, they are associated. Don't administer them along with the monoamine oxidase inhibitors because there will be an interaction. These drugs, SSRI, they are very useful because they are well tolerated by the patient. The patient acceptability to this drug is quite good. They are given once a day. They are not very much sedative. They are not having excessive anticholinergic effect. There are some drugs with sedative property, for example, fluoxamine and the fluoxetine. They can be preferred in agitated, depressed patient. While suppose there are patient, elderly patient, or patient where there is a CVS is compromised, then one can think of a sertraline, a citalopram. They are not disturbing the cardiovascular system. The arrhythmias is less. The tolerance is better as compared to the tricyclic antidepressant. And apart from the depression, there are huge number of uses as far as this SSRI are concerned. We'll see them later on. Then it has been observed that there are some drugs like trazodone, mycin, tyneptine, amineptine, venlafaxine, duloxetine, mirtazapine, and the bupropion. These are the agents. They are not very specific. They are not only serotonin blocker, or they are not only the noradrenaline reuptake inhibitors, but their exact mechanism is not known. Some drugs, they are acting as a 5-HT1A level. Few drugs are acting at a 5-hydroxytryptamine 2C and 1D level. Few drugs, they are acting only at the RAFE level of the brain centers. And the structure is also variable. They are not tricyclic. They might be a long chain compound, and still they are giving a antidepressive response. And that's why you can say that the depression is occurring as a very long or the enlarged phenomenon of the central nervous system function. The behavior is the output of trillions of the neurons. The different drugs, they are acting at a different way, and we may get a good neurotransmitter equilibrium. And as far as these atypical antidepressant drugs are concerned, it is observed that they are quite helpful in negative symptoms. Patients with suicidal thoughts, patients who are quite apathetic, they give a better response with the trazodone, mycin, and the tyneptine type of compound. The venlafaxine is noradrenaline as well as 5-hydroxytryptamine reuptake inhibitors, and it can be used even in a postmenopausal syndrome. Duloxetine, it is very useful as far as the excessive frequency of urination is concerned. Mirtazapine and the bupropion. Bupropion is having some CNS stimulant effect. So we will see what are the different uses of the SSRI. First is the, of course, depression and the endogenous depression. Another important use is the obsessive compulsive disorder and the phobic state. We have seen in anxiety. In resistant cases of anxiety, SSRI are helpful. And in patient of a obsessive compulsive disorder, these drugs give a good effect. The phobic responses, either agoraphobia or there is a phobia for a high altitude, then this drug give a good response. In neuropathic pain, diabetic patient or glossopharyngeal or the other neuropathic pain, differentiated type of pain, SSRI, they give a good result. In children with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, here child is so active that he is unable to concentrate. He don't stand still for a minute also, then how he can hold the book and how he can read and how he can concentrate. And mother, they are always worried about this type of children. They are so active, their thought process is so fast, then what to do? In those cases, it has been observed that the SSRI, imipramine, amitriptyline, they are quite useful. In enuresis or the bedwetting in cases of children, it is observed that a child usually gets a bladder control over 2 to 3 years of age. But with some children, there is a continuous feature of bedwetting. In that case, if imipramine or clomipramine is given, then after few weeks, the child gets a control. Not only the drugs, but along with the drug, a proper training, a bladder training should be given. Child is asked in the late evening that he should empty the bladder and then he should go to the sleep. So proper training and the drug, they give a good effect as far as the enuresis is concerned. For migraine, that is a half-side headache, we are having a number of drugs. Of course, the NSAID, the beta blockers, they are good drug. But In some cases, the SSRI, they give a good result. In intractable pruritus, or where the excessive pruritus is there, one can also use the SSRI with a sedative property. Thank you.